This is our New Year's edition of SANDCAST. Happy New Year's, everyone. Welcome back to the show for the first time in 2020.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hey.
And our first guest of the new year is one of the greatest players of all time. We're stoked to have in the house Sinjin Smith.
Good to be here.
Good to have you in here. Glad you found the place.
Yeah,
Parking
right.
can be a little troublesome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Good to have you here. How are things? Normally it's how's off season, but you're not playing 30 tournaments a year anymore.
No. Yeah, there really wasn't an off season, but yeah, now it's kind of a bummer not to see, tournaments going, places, to go and watch and play and the whole thing. But yeah, it's for me, I'm still involved in the sport at a bunch of different levels, with up and down the coast with camps and things and club on the beach. And then also I'm involved in licensing. I don't know how much I told you before, but, with King of the Beach and Queen of the Beach and King of the Court and Queen of the Court,
Right.
the company I work with, Miramar Brands, owns those brands. And I'm working to license those brands for various things.
Cool.
Huh. So King of the Court, when the event was here, I licensed the name to them so they could use it for their
awesome.
events.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I remember Hagen had mentioned kind of stuff similar to that, but I didn't really know what it meant really.
Yeah.
Cool.
And
So
we're hoping
busy.
we're hoping they come back. They were all fired up, the guys from Netherlands
They were all fired up.
to hoping it would become an Olympic sport. I like the format, by the way. I was a little skeptical at first, but when I went down to the event and saw it, very exciting, very fast paced.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get involved in a match and you see one team against another and maybe it's not interesting to you. But here, 5 teams, you're going to be interested in one of those teams at the very least, if not just the game itself and how quick it goes and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really good.
Do you think it would be too hard to follow or understand for kind of a casual? You're if someone saw it for the first time, I feel like it'd be wildly confusing.
No, they pick a team. They see the scoreboard. Every team's up on the scoreboard.
If you can see the scoreboard, I think you can figure it out.
Yeah, and you can follow the team. Oh, they're serving now. Let's see if they win the rally. It's easy to see if they win the rally or not because they go to the other side. If they lose, they're back in line again. So I don't think it's that hard to follow. I mean, you can figure it out very quickly, even for a novice in the sport. I think. Again, I was pleasantly surprised, and I've been around the sport a long time. Anything new, it's I don't know, but I thought it was good.
Yeah,
Says a lot.
Yeah, where do you stand on the side out versus rally scoring? I know that's kind of a hard line in the sand sometimes.
It's weird when you play 20 years. You're the vast majority of your career one way. And then it switches. But I understood why it happened, and you make an adjustment, and then it's still volleyball. It's just you've got to teach yourself, a little different. In the old rules, you could kind of start slow and then catch up. Now you can't do that. You have to start out right out of the gate, and you can't mess around. You give up a couple points, and that could be the whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I'm sure you probably had some pretty big comebacks in side-out scoring.
It was, I don't remember specifically, but I knew this. If a team got to, in a game to 15, if they got to 14 before us, scoring that last point for that other team was really, really difficult. Really difficult. Because we were going to side out every single time, and then eventually we'd score.
Yeah.
So this is Randy and I.
Right.
Yeah.
Or before that, it was Karch and I, but it was Randy and I for all those years.
Right.
But it was the same thing with Karch. And, we played right out of UCLA in 1979. He was a freshman. I was a senior. We won the NCAA championships. We went undefeated that year. And then we went right to the beach. And it was pretty easy playing with him.
Yeah.
We did it for a few years, and then we both went to the national team, and then I left the national team. He stayed on the national team, and he had to miss some tournaments, so I was playing with different people, and then I ended up accidentally playing with Randy, and we had, success right off the bat. First term we played in, we won. And that was okay for the rest of the season. Karch would come back. I go, Randy, I'm going to play with Karch. And he didn't like it, but he understood. Mm-hmm. And then the next year, he said, you play with me the whole time, or I'm going to find somebody else. And it made sense because Karch could only play in a handful of events. So that's how Randy and I got together, and we stayed together from that point on.
Yeah. You said you kind of accidentally found Randy, but how does one accidentally find like a 6'5", like ridiculous athlete? Like I'm sure he had to have been pretty.
Well, he was out there and he was playing. He was playing with Fishburne at the time, who was one of the best players, and we were competing against him. And really tough. They never won a tournament because we were there. Right. And then he was still playing with Fishburne when Karch went away, and I played with my brother. I played with a few other guys, and then Fishburne was gone for one tournament, and Randy and I, let's play.
Right. Okay.
So we played and did well.
Tough one to miss, Andy.
Yeah. It wasn't good for him.
We had Mike Dodd in a couple weeks ago, and he was telling us about kind of just the weird relationship between the beach guys. You mentioned that you were on the national team, left the national team. You mentioned just kind of the strange relationship the Southern California beach guys had with Doug Beal and the more Midwest.
He had great things to say about your passing.
He did.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just to elaborate on that, I mean, most people don't know the four of us, Hav, Dodd, Randy, and me, were all on the national team at one point. Mm-hmm. And then at one point we were all off the national team. And we were all playing on the beach. So, and there's a lot of stories related to that too. I went to the national team in 1979 when it was back in Ohio, in Dayton, Ohio, and that was right after the tournament. May 7th, got on a plane, took off, and started training to go and try and qualify for 1980. And the whole time we were there, we were going, this makes no sense to have the program back in Ohio. All the players are out in Southern California at that time. It's different today, but at that time, they were all out here. And nobody would go back there. It just so happens that Pat Powers, Dusty Dvorak, myself, Tim Hovland, and some other guys, right after that season, indoor season, we went back to play on the national team. So we gave them a really good shot to qualify. And then, but along the way, we go, this makes no sense to be back here. Why are we here?
Right.
So eventually, right after the 80 Olympics, they moved the program out to San Diego. And, and then all the guys from Southern California, from all the, from Pepperdine, UCLA, USC, all the different colleges, all the guys would come and join the national team. And I just, as a little aside, we would train from 8 to 12 in the morning, with the team. And then Karch and I would go down to the beach at South Mission Beach, and we'd put on weight belts, and then we'd play volleyball, all afternoon.
With
and then there were belts at that time, 12-pounders. And then so we play all afternoon, and then we'd come back and we'd lift weights, and we do that every day. And we couldn't. The coaches couldn't know, otherwise they'd freak out. But we couldn't get enough volleyball. I mean, it didn't matter, indoor, outdoor, it didn't matter. We just wanted to play, so it was pretty awesome.
That I can't imagine because. Like so many people, do you laugh when a lot of the guys now, play 2 hours a day and a couple hours, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm burned out." You guys were going.
No, I don't laugh, but yeah, it doesn't. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I mean, we would play all day, every day. I mean, in the 70s and early 80s, there weren't that many tournaments, so 7 days a week we'd be playing. If there was a tournament, you drive to it, you play for 2 days. You come back and you'd start playing again on Monday all week long, all day long. And you get on center court. You'd want to get on the number one court. And you'd play and win and stay on court all day long. All day. 8 hours
or more. How many players would come up and challenge you guys? It seems so different than these days. I feel like no one would show up to challenge us if we did that, right?
I feel like it's a different environment because everyone has their set training courts.
Yeah. Well, imagine all those guys that set up matches if they all went to Sereno or Manhattan Beach.
Right.
All of them.
Right.
Or Santa Barbara.
Right.
there'd be a group and there'd be people waiting to get on that center court. You would never, you were bummed out if you were like third in line to get on the court.
Right.
You try to get on the court, and stay on the court all day long. And there was always the second court where you could play, but you wanted to be on the first court.
Right.
So you compete all day long.
Yeah, that's a lot different than nowadays.
Yeah.
Now it's like you set up practice to go compete with a specific team at a specific time.
Yeah, and you maybe you play 2 matches, right? In a training session, or maybe no matches. I don't know.
We usually you'll drill and do like set drills, competition drills, and then 1 match. Usually. I don't think anyone plays 2 matches.
Yeah.
Well, you'd never last in one of our tournaments. In 2 days, there'd be over 64 teams in the bigger tournaments.
Right.
And it was 2 out of 3.
Oh, yeah.
Old scoring. Losers bracket was 1 to 15, old scoring. So, you were going to play a whole bunch of hours.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of hours. Not you guys don't even play 4 matches in a day, right?
The qualifiers
you can.
4.
Yeah, you can, but in the regular tournament you wouldn't.
Right.
Unless it rained or something happened, you'd have to push it in. 64 team, double elimination. You figure out how many games you would play, right?
Yeah.
And if you go into the losers, it's 1 game to 15, but it's still gnarly. You're playing many more games.
Yeah, you're kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so different.
And they didn't water the courts.
Good.
Right, yeah.
And if you wore socks, people kind of go, pfft,
Yeah. Automatically off court 1.
Yeah, it was a lot different. But the changes to the game, I don't think hurt the game. The smaller court I think is good for the game. I played on the smaller court. I knew it was harder to side out, which is exactly what we wanted to accomplish when we made the rule, is to make it more interesting for the fans. And ultimately, it's more interesting for the players, too, because they play more volleyball. If you can't put it away as easily, that means somebody on the other side is bringing it up or blocking it back, or you have another chance for the ball to go over the net. And that's ultimately what you want. You want to see the ball go over the net.
Right.
I made a living at having nobody touch the ball. Right.
Yeah.
I guess you get used to that as a fan, and you expect to see it, but you're not bringing in new fans to watch a guy pass that hit and put the ball away every single time.
And you're having to swing at the block, or really close to it, to actually get a hit down. So now you're going to see bigger blocks as well. Right?
Yeah, which is fine. Yeah, I don't know how many players like to get blocked. So you try to avoid the block, right?
Right, yeah.
So if you're a digger, you go to the place where the blocker isn't blocking,
right?
Or you track down balls that are shot. That's just what you do. Bigger players, great. They still have to be able to pass and set, right?
Totally.
And great, they take away more area, but that means you should see more digs too, or more blocks,
Right?
Unless the offensive guy just has no brains and just wants to hit it hard into the block,
right? Yeah.
I love how one of my favorite things of when I played with Hagen, and you would kind of give advice when Hagen asked for it, is how simple you made how simple you made the game, that it's really easy to overcomplicate. I just remember we were playing I think Troy and Chase, and you were like, well, this guy needs a huge approach. He's like, so why don't you just short serve him every ball? And that was mind blowing to me.
Well, it's funny. Short serves, I think, are one of the things that should be used way more than they are. Everyone wants the big serve, right? And they're great. If you're feeling it, big serve, awesome. But if you want to take the guy out of their normal offense, give them a short serve.
That's true.
They move up a step or two, and then their approach is different. No matter what happens, their approach is going to be different. Even if they're good at a 1 step and up, it's still going to be different than if it's 3 or 4 steps to come up and hit.
Right.
So if you can change what they like to do normally, you're going to have a better shot at picking balls up.
Right.
Did you? So Dad coached Rosie and Jake for a couple quads. Did you ever think about getting a team, or did you? I don't even know if you got into coaching like that.
No, I would help guys if they asked, but I didn't have the time to really stick with the team and train with them and then travel with them and do the whole thing.
Yeah.
But if anyone asked me, it didn't matter. I would say, yeah, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? I'd watch them and give them a little input.
Yeah. Do you still get out there every now and then?
When I have to, certain people ask me to play, or there's an event of some sort, and I'll go out and do something. I try not to do anything more than just pass.
Yeah.
Because the jumping thing doesn't work anymore. And you know what happens when your brain remembers what your body used to be able to do?
You hurt that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the jumping to Hagen.
Yeah, right.
Something pretty good.
Yeah.
But you've been really heavily involved in the FIVB. I mean, the game at every level, and I see you on tour every once in a while. Mm-hmm. What kind of made you want to get into that side of things?
When I'll take you back to the 80s.
Well, your guys' generation is seemed to be a lot more involved. Like the players were really a part of what happened in the tours, and you guys ran the tour at one point.
Yeah,
I understand, right?
yeah.
You're gonna have to.
So, on the international, well, we could start with the professional side of the sport, we were playing up and down the coast, and there was no sponsors, nothing, and everything. Yeah, and then a promoter saw what was going on, and they put some money in, and we had some professional events. We didn't have anything to do with that. And then, I'm trying to make it a shorter story because it could go forever.
For sure.
And then Leonard Armato came to us and said, hey, you guys can own your sport. You guys, the players. And we're going, huh? And he said, I'll help you do it. We'll form an organization, and we'll have the sponsors deal directly with the organization, and, so on and so forth. And we said, great. So he did that. He did it for us, basically. And that was the start of the AVP.
All right, we're going to pause here and take a quick second to acknowledge our lovely sponsors.
Support for SANDCAST comes from a new sponsor, Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-belt grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels, which in beach volleyball, this is a well-groomed sport. You want to be looking good out there, which is why our code for 20% off is look good, play good. And you also want Manscaped because everyone knows or probably knows a guy who has had a troubling Manscaped story. I had a buddy in my fraternity who used scissors down there, and it just doesn't work all that well all the time, and that's why you have Manscaped here to help you out. It's redesigned the electric trimmer. Their Lawnmower 2.0 has proprietary skin-safe technology, so this trimmer won't nick or snag your nuts. You don't need that in your life. Trust me. Manscaping accents are finally a thing of the past. Try?
Well, and don't use the same trimmer on your face as you're using on your balls. That's just nasty. Manscaped also has the Crop Preserver, an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. You're already using deodorant on your armpits. Why are you not using deodorant on the smelliest part of your body? Go ahead and get 20% off plus free shipping with the code LookGoodPlayGood at manscaped.com. Always use the right tools for the job, ladies and gentlemen. Your balls will thank you.
So that is 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use the code LookGoodPlayGood today.
Speaking of balls, Travis, Wilson just came out with a new ball. That's the new Optics ball with the OPTX technology. It's definitely been my favorite ball since I was a kid. I used to play with Wilson back at the Outrigger Canoe Club, as everyone's heard many times over the podcast. And honestly, the Wilson's the best ball in the world. If you talk to any of the athletes, the Americans, they all want to be playing with the Wilson. There's a reason that those are the balls you're seeing out on the beaches, whether it's California or Florida or somewhere in between. The Wilson ball is the go-to, and now there's a completely different look that is built to make you perform better, to see the ball better, but it's the same feel. So go to wilson.com, get yourself a new ball, because if you don't have a new ball, then you're just that guy on the beach or girl. And use promo code WilsonSand to get your discount today. I'd like to take this moment to let all of you know about Firefly Recovery, something that I take on the road with me when I'm traveling. I usually use it on the plane because you know how your legs get all swollen when you're traveling across the world, is a way for us to recover faster with increased blood flow. There's these knee straps and they have these nerve stimulators on them, and basically it helps you recover. And you'll see a lot of beach volleyball players wearing them. And you need to get yourself a pair today at fireflyrecovery.com. All right, everybody, now it's time for your Pacific Coast Wealth Management Olympic update. It's been quite a grind in this 2019 season, and the season is finally over, so we are officially in the off season. The top American team is Taylor Crabb and Jake Gibb, and they're in the 8th spot in the world. Bourne, yours truly, and Trevor Crabb are in the 10th spot. Meanwhile, Philip Dahlhauser and Nick Lucena are in the 17th spot, still looking to fill 2 more finishes to get their 12th. And then on the women's side, April Ross, as always, is in the 2nd spot with Alex Kleinman. They've been dominating this year. But in the 5th spot, Carrie Walsh-Jennings and Brooke Sweat. In the 6th spot, Sarah Sponsel and Kelly Clays. Yes, the American women are absolutely stacked. And in the 7th spot, Kelly Larson and Emily Stockman. It is going to be an insane qualification year in 2020. We're all looking forward to it. Hopefully, Bourne and Crabb are there. Aloha. And now back to the show.
And you know, then we controlled kind of everything.
Right.
We went out and, you know, helped get new sponsors, dealt with the television, and I played a pretty good role with all of that.
Right.
And then I was invited to play in Brazil in this international event in 1980, I think it was 86. And Pat Powers and I went down with Nina Matthews and Linda Handley.
I love Nina Matthews.
And we played 2-on-2 girls, 2-on-2 guys, and then 4-on-4 mixed against the Brazilian. Against their indoor stars, they're big-time stars.
Right.
You know how Brazil is with their indoor stars. Imagine there weren't any beach stars yet.
Right.
They were the indoor stars. So we played. It was a huge success. We played in 2 different cities, in Rio and then in somewhere else. And the crowds were insane. The people were crazy. I don't know about so much about us, but at least for the indoor stars. Right. And we needed protection.
Wow.
I mean, it was gnarly. But it was such a huge success. The promoter of those events, who was a guy who went to USC, it was a tennis player, Fernando von Ortsen. He and I went to the FIVB and said, hey, let's do an international, event, sanctioned by the FIVB, a world championship. So the next year, we did a world championships and then did that for several years. I ended up playing with Randy in the next one, and we had a lot of success there, and then that's how the world tour started. It started in Brazil, a few events in Brazil, and then Italy, and then different countries got involved, and more teams came from around the world. And the FIVB saw what was happening, and it was a good thing. And then the president of the FIVB, Ruben Acosta, was good friends with Juan Antonio Samaranch from the IOC, the president. And, he had this relationship, and he would take me with him to talk to other IOC members. And we had an event alongside of the 92 Olympics in Barcelona, a beach event, to showcase the sport for the IOC. And that's the event. Randy and I were sanctioned $70,000 by the AVP for going and playing in that event.
No way.
And we had promised 2 years ahead of time to go to the event to showcase beach volleyball for the IOC to try to get the sport into the Olympics.
$70,000.
Yeah. Well, we happened to win that amount of money.
Oh, there you go.
But they kept us from playing in the biggest events of the season, the AVP. And these are the same guys that were our opponents in every event. Were sanctioning us.
Right.
Kind of weird thing, huh?
That's really weird.
So they kept us from playing in events. So events that we would win most of the time, we weren't there. But from that, the sport became an Olympic sport. And so it was all worthwhile in the end for us. For sure. For them, they could care less, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. And in fact, they said, no, it'll never be an Olympic sport. You're just, blowing in the wind, know. And, so it became an Olympic sport. And it was awesome.
Wow. Well, thank you.
There's a lot more along the way that happened.
Sure.
If you want to dive into it another time, we can do that.
We can have you on as much as you'll come.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, make notes and have the questions, and I can go.
All right.
What when you were pushing for or helping the FIVB kind of get beach internationally.
Yep.
What was the main motivation? Because that was when the AVP was really on the up and up, and so because if you talk to Hav, he's like, well, why would I go to Brazil to play an event against these indoor guys who can't play the beach when I could stay here?
But he did.
Money.
He did. and he loves Brazil. I mean, when you have an opportunity to go play in another country, it's how great is it? And those, even though in the mid '80s, the Brazilian indoor players weren't as seasoned on the beach as we were, they were still very competitive and tremendous volleyball athletes. Tremendous. So it's not like we went over there and it was a cakewalk. No, by no means.
Right.
But after a few years, they were right there. Mm-hmm. And then they were, it took a little while, but then players started to play just on the beach. They would grow up playing indoors, but they would make the transition and play beach once there was a place to play. And then, we were so good because we had a tour. We had a place to play and compete. Otherwise, we'd be playing down at our local beach. But when you have that tour and you can make money and travel around and prepare for events, so you're playing a lot and competing, you have an advantage over any country that's not competing regularly. But Brazil very quickly figured it out, and they started a tour, a national tour. They're competing, and then more and more players developed, and then they became, for a while, the best country in the world.
Speaking of Brazilians, where does Jose Loyola fall into this story?
As a Brazilian or American?
He's my coach now. Well, Brazilian, because he was like, from what I understand, it seems like he was like that young kid that just was like, let me take a crack at these Americans. Yeah. And I don't know where that fell in the timeline of their career.
He came a little later.
Okay.
We didn't. I think we competed a little bit with him internationally, not a ton. Mm-hmm. But interesting story, Manuel, who
similar time they came out.
Yeah. Well,
right, together.
So in probably '89, somewhere around there, we would always go in our winter time in February, for the big event.
Right.
And it's right in the middle of their summer, and they're all, they're in perfect shape, everything else. And we come over, we're completely white. And we'll try and get a couple games in before we start the tournament the next day. And we go out, Randy and I, and we, you don't want to play against good teams, right? So they go, play against this kid and his partner, and it's Emmanuel, and he's probably 17 maybe. Mm-hmm. He's skinny anyway, but imagine 17, right?
Totally.
This skinny kid, and after the first two plays, Randy and I look at each other and go, oh no, we're screwed, and we can't lose.
Yeah.
You can't, because we were,
they'll blow it up.
We were the kings of Rio.
Right.
And everybody expected us to come down and win. And then we're just messing around, and here they throw this kid out against us, and we can't lose. You just can't.
Yeah.
And we eventually won that game, but it was everything we could do to compete and win. And that was the day before, and it was just a warm-up game. Crazy. Yeah. I don't know where was I going with that?
It was Manuel and then Jose.
So Manuel, he became, as you know, probably the greatest player, in our era.
Yeah. Right.
With all his success in Brazil and internationally and in the Olympic Games. I mean, just unbelievable, incredible. He could probably compete at that level today. I'm not sure why he retired, but he was tremendous. It seemed like he never got hurt. He just jumped effortlessly, and he had all the skills.
He seemed like he was so light on the sand.
Yeah.
Like he was almost like tiptoeing around.
Yeah.
He'd jump and float.
Yeah.
played like.
So Loyola. We started
Loyola.
this with Loyola. So Loyola, they played together, right? And they were really, really good. And that was kind of at the end of my career. Mm-hmm. And Loyola was he was scary. I mean, he could jump. Imagine Emmanuel and Loyola, two jumpers, right? And they could do everything. They were a scary, scary team. And jump serving as a jump serving team too, ridiculous.
Especially on that big court.
A big court, in a game to 15, they would score, at least half of their points on just the serve.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Wow.
I'm not sure how great that was either for the game, and when you can win,
right. Just ripping aces.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
What was it that made you and Randy such a good team? Because when you look at it on paper, you have, I don't know how tall are you? Maybe 6'2"?
6'3".
6'3"?
He's maybe 6'5",
okay.
maybe.
So like not like a huge team.
Yeah, but he was a big 6'5".
He's a huge dude.
Big 6'5". I mean, he jumped really well for someone his size, and he was he had played so much volleyball growing up,
right?
That he had a sense for the game that not many people had.
Yeah.
And of course he had incredible hands. Mm-hmm. At the time, probably the best hands on the beach. He could set any ball from anywhere and spin. And it wasn't this. It was
right.
He
was getting it out.
Yeah, and so we complemented each other very well. He was great at the net, and it was at the time when blocking was becoming more and more important for the game. Mm-hmm. And he could dig, but he was better as a blocker.
Yeah.
So that freed me up in the backcourt to run around and do what I do. Mm-hmm. And we figured out how to play together and how to use each of our strengths. And at some point, communication's so important, right? At some point, we didn't have to talk.
Right.
Because I knew what he was going to do in just about every situation, and he knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
It was, when you play long enough together with somebody, I mean, that's the beauty of it. You're not running into each other. Mm-hmm. Right. You know where he's going to be, and you know where to go, and, yeah. And if beyond that, if you get in trouble, you know how to help the other person, or, if I get in trouble, I tell him, he knows exactly what to do, and, so, yeah.
You mentioned, like, blocking was fairly new at that point, or in terms of, like, its importance in the game. Did you guys notice that your game and style together had to, like, evolve? Because you guys played together for so long. You must have had to kind of, like, evolve with the sport, because it was transitioning, like...
When we started playing together, blocking was... I can't remember when we started if you couldn't
cross over,
penetrate the plane yet, but it happened all pretty right around that time.
Yeah.
And even if you went up to block and you couldn't penetrate, you still took an area away.
Yeah.
They still, if they wanted to hit, okay, I'll line up to hit, right? And if they wanted to avoid the block, then you're still running the ball down. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it didn't seem like we had to do anything special or different. It just was natural to do what we did, and yeah.
We tell a lot of the younger players or players on, like, we really emphasize, like, stick with a partner, because all these small things that you're talking about, like knowing where each other are going to go in those, like, quick instinctual moments where you can't communicate. Yeah. But, like, a lot of people are like, oh, we lost 2 in a row, we're out.
Yeah.
Next partner, we didn't work out. Yeah.
Must have been that guy's fault.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, you have to have some element of success to stay with somebody.
That's true. Yeah.
That's and sometimes you can get better as a team and find that success if you stay with that person. Right. But not that it happens all the time, but when Karch and I played together, the first time we played, we won. And you're okay. This works.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And the same thing with Randy. We won, so that worked. It doesn't happen for everybody, but I've seen it happen with other teams too, where accidentally teams come together and they normally don't play together, and then all of a sudden they have a tremendous success, and it's like, oh Jesus, I wonder why we didn't do this before, and
right,
yeah. So,
That's true.
Hey, it's great if they can play with all kinds of different people. That way they learn personalities, they learn how to play, around different, it's a good exercise, particularly when they're younger.
Right.
Yeah. So staying together is important, but for kids, I would say change partners every week.
That's a good point.
Just
you learn all the different personalities.
Yeah, and figure out how to play a certain style of game with certain people.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the next person you play with, you have to learn all over again.
Right.
It's okay. They're learning. I mean, when are the really critical and important times, for a team, or a player, an individual player, when they're getting recruited to college, it helps to have a partner that you're good with. You can compete at a high level, and so more coaches will see you because you're going further in the tournament. That's all important, and then, when you're when you're making money.
When you're pro, yeah, exactly. I think we think about the qualifier players a lot. They seem to bounce around. But, I mean, that's the point, right? They're trying to get to the money.
Yeah, they're trying to, get into the main draw.
Right.
Once they do that, then okay, I got to this point. Now it's a whole nother game once you get to the main draw, right? It almost seems like, at least the last year or two, it's harder to get into the main draw than it is to win a couple games in the main draw.
Yeah, that could be fair.
Maybe not your first game because you're playing the top seed.
Right.
But once you drop into the losers bracket, you're playing against other guys that maybe got there 2 years ago or 3 years ago and have been hanging out down there, right?
Right.
At the lower end of the AVP. And so if you can get through everybody fighting in the qualifier into the main draw, then
you're warm.
Yeah,
right?
you have a chance.
Qualifier team.
Yeah, hopefully you're warm and you're not
tested.
done.
By the end of the next day, eventually you're done. But
I mean, done meaning you got enough juice left to play.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if you play 4 matches in a day, and if you're not in good shape, and they're 3-game matches, it takes its toll. Because you don't train that way.
Right, yeah. When we listen to your guys' stories, you sound like a total wimp if you can't play after 4 matches. Yeah. I don't think I've played 4 matches since I've been pro. Yeah. Maybe like twice or once or twice.
Especially with the pace that the World Tour plays now. I mean, when we were in China, we played 1 match a day.
So wild.
AVP, if you stay in the winner's bracket, it's like 2 matches, 1 match, 2 matches.
Yeah.
And you won the tournament.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
A little different.
It's nice though. I love those buys in the winner's bracket.
It's interesting when we were playing in the 2-day tournaments. If I won the tournament, I'd take Monday off. If I didn't win, it was going hard on Monday, all the way through.
I like that.
We were winning quite a bit. So
yeah. So Mondays were off.
Yeah. And I'd feel bad sometimes if it was an easy win, and what's easy. But if I didn't feel like I was totally torched, I would go out and do something Monday anyway. Yeah.
That's so crazy. Because nowadays, I feel like we're almost trained to think don't overdo it. Everyone says that, whether it's a trainer or weight coach or anyone.
And what that means is don't overdo what you're not used to.
We were actually going to pause there because our episode with Sinjin went a little less than 2 hours long. We don't want to burden you guys with a 2-hour podcast, first thing of the new year. So we're going to leave it there. Part 2 will be next Wednesday here on SANDCAST. So appreciate you guys listening throughout all of 2019, all of 2018. And welcome to 2020. Happy New Year's, guys. We appreciate the heck out of all you listeners, all you sponsors, all of you guests. Cannot do the show without all you guys. So Happy New Year. Appreciate you listening to Sinjin Smith Part 1. And catch us next week on SANDCAST for Sinjin Smith Part 2.